والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. We continue the lesson Buloogh Al-Maraam by the great illustrious Imam Al-Hafiz Ahmad bin Ali ibn Hajar Al-Asqalani, the one who died 852 after the Hijrah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wasalam, on this day, which the time is 2:56, Sunday, December the 2nd, 2018 p.m. 2018 a year, and I'm sorry everyone, 2:56 p.m. Sunday, December the 2nd, 2018, which agrees with the Gregorian calendar, or the Hijri calendar. I don't know what's going on with me today. The Hijri calendar, which is 4:37. Why does it do this? 4:37 p.m. Rabi' al-Awwal, 23rd Rabi' al-Awwal, 1440 after the Hijrah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wasalam. All these different advertisements they put on these apps, it's becoming sickening, right? طيب. We continue in the lesson of Buloogh Al-Maraam, and as I mentioned again, even though I'm online, I would like to say this just for 1 minute, and then I'm going to talk about this. Again, brothers and sisters, especially those who listen online, brothers and sisters, please do not busy yourselves with these things that are being passed around on the line. Please do not busy yourself with these, and I even hate to say his name now because it's redundant. Shadi Muhammad. Shadi Muhammad, again, brothers and sisters, is a master of manipulation. The man studied, he knows what he's doing. He purposely does this to our communities to stir up fitna and chaos and controversy. If you notice his pattern for more than 10 years, he does this. Every 6-7 months, once his name starts to die down, as far as him being relevant with the people, he likes to stir up the pot again. So he comes out with a clip or something controversial to say so the people can start talking about it and they can pass it around and they can make it their topic of that particular day. So everyone can busy themselves with mentioning his name. Once the people realize his pattern and why he does this, to manipulate everyone, to have everyone busy with some type of controversy and conflict, it will be as soon as the people realize that, then that'll be the quicker that his dawah will die. And that's the reason why we highly emphasize to the people, if you notice his pattern for more than a decade, after 5 or 6 or 7 months, once his name starts dying down on the tongues of the people, he comes with something else controversial to say to get you to talk about him again. That's what you call a master of manipulation. They purposely do that to keep you what? Speaking about them. So once the people stop paying any type of attention to these people is the moment that their dawah will die and fizzle out, because that's all they have. They don't have anything else except controversy, conflict, chaos, disrupting the peace, disrupting the people from learning in a manner that is befitting. So in order to take the people away from that, start some controversy, conflict. Have the people put on social media, yeah, you heard what he said? Yeah, he refuted that, to the end of it. So that's the reason why we highly emphasize to the people, do not busy ourselves with these affairs. It's clearly Shadi Muhammad is upon his guidance. It's clear as the sun in the sky. For those who defend him, they do not understand Manhaj Salafi. It's clear. Those who defend them, they're defending them based upon emotions, not basing them upon stated actual facts and evidences and proofs. Those who defend him is based upon emotions. If you look at the facts and gather everything that this man has said and all the many statements he has said that opposes Manhaj Salafi, you would even look at the statement to say, how can anyone doubt that this man is misguided? It's clear. Man has other statements of kufr. The man has other statements that necessitates tabdi', of innovation, to the end of it. What more do the people want? The man has a dialogue with women that's not covered, that have makeup on their faces. The man has said that the Prophet ﷺ is an alpha male. The man has said that the Sahaba are different aqidah. The man has praised Jamaat al-Tabligh and say how the Sufis, how they will marry you off to their women and they iron your clothes and so on and on and on and on and on. What more do you want from a man that's clearly showing you displaying misguidance? You even seen the fruits of his labor. He came here to Delaware, spent 3 months here and destroyed the whole community. It took him 3 months. That's all it took him. Here in Delaware. 3 months, that's it. I think it was less than that or more, a little bit more than that. 3 months, this is the fruits of everywhere he goes. Leaves behind it chaos, a wave of fitna, confusion, and people being destroyed as far as in their relationships, and people turning against each other, and people not loving one another. Rather, you'll find the separation, division, everywhere he goes. That's the fruits of his da'wah and the fruits of his labor, and that's been his da'wah since more than 10 years now. So I do not want to hear anything about Shadeed Muhammad anymore. I don't want to busy myself with him. The man is clearly upon his guidance, and I ask the people, I hope they would do the same, not to give that man any attention and give him any more power than what he's done as far as in manipulating our communities and having the people talk about him. The sooner they stop uttering these people's names, the sooner they'll fizzle out and they'll dwindle away. And they won't be a fitna or a problem with us anymore. Only people that mention his name are people who praise that man is ignorant of Minhaj al-Salafi. Ignorant. Or they're following their desires. Like I said, you never find the great Imam Sheikh Al-Albani or Sheikh bin Baz having an audience of people clapping and dialoguing with a woman. You've never seen this. This is all foreign. You never find these affairs. The people who's victorious and those who Allah has blessed their da'wah, you've seen how they conduct it. Sheikh bin Baz never did this. Sheikh Al-Albani never did these things. He never involved himself in these type of matters. And you see how Allah has put barakah in their da'wah. These are the people who we want to try to be like. These are the people we want to try to emulate, especially in our application of Islam and our application of Da'wat al-Salafiyya. We continue in the hadith, if everyone goes back. We were discussing the hadith of Jabir ibn Abdullah. It says, قال كنا مع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في غزاة. We already talked about that. That we were with the Messenger of Allah in an expedition. We were going out, or we set out for expedition. So فلما قدمنا المدينة ذهبنا لندخل, as we said. So when we came to Al-Madinah, we approached the city of Al-Madinah. We said we went in order to enter it. And the Messenger of Allah said, Amhilu. He says, wait a small time, or wait just a minute, just wait, in order to enter. In the night, at the Isha, to give the chance for the woman who's in a state of being disheveled or disoriented to comb her hair and to comb her hair, and with tastahid al-mughiba, and remove the hair from the parts of the body which needs to be removed. There's another narration, everyone looks in their books. It says in Bukhari, إِذَا طَالَ أَحَدُكُمُ الْغَيْبَةِ فَلَا يَطْرُقْ أَهْلَهُ لَيْلًا. If one of you, where his time frame, where he was absent from his family a long time, then do not enter his family at night. Meaning, do not approach them or come upon them at night. We discussed this last class, everyone, and it shows the comprehensiveness of our religion in regards to social matters. And we talked about this chapter is in regards to what they call husn al-ishra, having good dealings between the two spouses and living with them in kindness and trying to actualize the affair, what they call in Arabic husn al-ishra, having good dealings with the spouse and living with them in a manner that is pleasing to Allah and that which causes harmony amongst the two. So that which causes husnul ishra, not su'ul ishra, husnul ishra, bringing about that good dealings within the marriage and relationship, is that a man does not enter upon his family if he's been gone for a long time. Meaning he's been gone away in a travel that's for extended long periods of time. You'll find that the great Imam, Sheikh Salih Fawzan, even mentioned this, and I gave some details, so I don't need to review it, everything we took. But just to sum up, as he says, this narration is in regards to husnul ishra, having good dealings and treatment with one to the other, or one spouse to the other. He says, whereas the man does not surprise her, whereas if he was to surprise her after he was gone a long period of time and she does not know he's coming, she has no idea that he's coming home, rather he surprises her, for example. He says, and maybe if he was to surprise her, he will find her in a state that's inappropriate. He said, rather, it's incumbent upon him to take his time. That is because the Messenger of Allah, when he was in the expedition, and he came and approached Al-Madinah, the Messenger of Allah prohibited that they, meaning the Sahaba, entered. He says that is because the Messenger of Allah said, allowing the woman to comb her hair and to remove the hairs from the places which needs to be removed. Meaning that the woman beautify her hair. And we know beautifying the hair is part of what? Good dealings. And it allows the relationship to stay and remain strong. So the message of Allah is given all these different types of social matters that takes place amongst the spouses in order to what? Preserve their relationship. So he said not to enter upon them, meaning that the woman that's disheveled, meaning her hair is not in a manner that's appropriate or it's not combed or what have you, that's give her a chance to comb it. And also likewise due to the long extended period where he was absent, we know that usually women take a break. That they would like to what? Take a break. And not saying they don't care about themselves, but they will relax in a manner that sometimes of how they would usually dress in front of their husbands, they will be a little bit more lax in that particular matter at that particular time, especially if he's gone for a long extended time. Usually women will take a more opportunity to relax. And their hair might not be in a manner that she would want to be presented if her husband was to see her. So she says, to the extent the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, give them a muhla, give them some time. So she would comb her hair for the woman whose hair was disheveled or disoriented, so she can what? Comb it. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, tastahid al-mughiba. Tastahid, or had, means something, to use something sharp. As the word had in the Arabic language means sharp. Notice the Messenger of Allah ﷺ used the verb, tastahid al-mughiba, meaning that which he just used the verb that what usually people back then used to utilize to remove hair, which is by something sharp. So he said tastahid al-mughiba, meaning that which is not seen, usually in a person's body is their what? Is hair, as far as in their different areas, under their arms, their private part, or certain areas. So he said al-mughiba, meaning remove the hair that usually needs to be removed by something sharp, meaning in the private part or under the armpits or what have you. Is it just restricted to just using the razor? No, it isn't. A person can use a razor. They can use, of course, we know clippers or depilatory cream, I think they call it, or what they call Nair, I think was some other thing. All those different types of matters are what? Are permissible for one to remove the hair. So it's not necessarily just used by what? A razor. It could be used by clippers. It could be used by depilatory cream, what have you. But also the origin is that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ just used the word tastahid because it comes from the word hadid, had or hadid. And we even know hadid means iron, or hadida is like a razor. But he just used that which just to utilize a word that was known amongst the companions at that time, that which they use in most cases. They will use a razor. But, like we said, it's permissible to use other than that. So it says al-mughiba, يعني طالت غيبة زوجها, meaning that the husband has been gone for a long, extended period of time. As we said in the last class, right, everyone? We talk about a little bit more in this in detail. So now, if this extended time was to take place, as we know, the great Imam, Sheikh Salih Fawzan, he says usually women become lax and they won't really put more emphasis on their beauty to look presentable for their husbands in these particular circumstances. So now, when a person either gives them prior notice, meaning the husband is gone for a long time, it's either coming upon her to give her some notice before he what? Before he comes. Babe, I'm on my way home. I'll be home at this particular time. This is for extended long period of time. I'm going to give some details. Don't worry. To let her know. Give her prior notice or let someone give them a message. But alhamdulillah, in these days and times, things have been facilitated and easy. A person could just send a message and it's easy now. That, babe, I'm going to be home at this particular day, at this particular time, or what have you. So it could give now the woman ample time or enough time to prepare herself for her husband to look presentable. So it doesn't be in a manner that's inappropriate that might cause what they call in the Arabic language nafra or nufra, meaning some type of way that the husband will find some type of, not repulse, but he will find some type of disgust to see his wife in a manner that's not acceptable, where it might cause some type of instability in the relationship. So Islam sets out in order to what, everyone? Sets out in order to protect the relationships as much as possible. And even likewise, you'll find that these narrations clearly shows that what? Physical and caring about one's physical appearance is also from the religion. So people don't think that, no, it's all about repairing the heart. It's repairing. It is, no doubt. Our soul, we need to be working on the focus on the religious aspect of it. No, that's important, but still, the religion also calls to wealth and one to take care of his or hers appearance. So, because people like to look to see their spouses in their best, so it can protect the relationship as much as possible. As much as possible. Especially in these days and times of fitna, of what we're living in of today, of what men and women see, of different things that are very, very deceptive. Not only deceptive, but very tempting. So we should try as spouses to what? To make sure that we protect and present ourselves in a manner that can keep away what they call nufra, where one does not want to be with one, or one will not want to be with another, based upon something they might have seen, or a circumstance or something that's not appropriate that a man or woman should not see from their spouse. And we know that that's more broad than just mentioning here this hadith. That could be for a woman's monthly cycle, or from smells, or from odors, because all these things cause nafra. They will cause for one spouse to be a little bit in a state of detachment, or might be repulsed to where it might cause some type of instability in a relationship. And Islam calls to remove all of those matters. To one, to be cleanly, to make sure smells are removed, not only for the men, from the women both, and also to maintain their hygiene, to make sure smells are removed, bad breath smells, or women, or especially women during their mens, to hide certain things, to make sure, and alhamdulillah, like we said, we know that women that are classy these days, say to the point where they even tell their husbands to have their own bathroom in certain circumstances. Not because she thinks she's better, but because she's a lady and she doesn't want you to see certain things that might cause you to not want to be what? Not want to be, or might cause some type of aversion of want to be close to her if certain men see those certain things. So there's nothing wrong with that. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Is it clear what I'm saying? طيب. So then he goes on to say, he said, well, Aydan, this is exactly what I mentioned. He says, no, listen, this is not my words. He says, وَأَيْضًا يُسَبِّبُ نَفْرَةَ زَوْجِهَا. نفرة. Notice he used that. فَهَذا يُسَبِّبُ سُوءَ الْعِشْرَةِ بَيْنَ الزَّوْجَيْنِ. He says, because if a man is now been gone for a long extended period of time, and he sees this woman in this state, he says, فَهَذا يُحْرِجُهَا مِنْ نَاحِيَةٍ. Of course, it's going to cause her to be in a tight spot too, if he was to surprise her. And also, يُسَبِّبْ نَفْرَةَ زَوْجِهَا. It causes her husband to have some type of what? Aversion. Some type of instability in the relationship, which would be the opposite of why we mentioned this chapter, which is su' al-ishra, which is what? Now, bad dealings in the relationship between the spouses. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ basically wanted to teach his ummah of how to refrain from that, and how to be on guard against that, and how to protect husn al-ishra, of good dealings amongst each other, amongst the spouses, as much as possible. So if the man is gone for a long time, he should not surprise his wife in the night, whereas she's upon the circumstances or upon a state that's inappropriate for him to enjoy her or come upon her, and it would cause him to smile and want to be intimate with her or what have you. He said, for verily, this is the absolute completeness of the legislation of Islam and how it takes into consideration the circumstances of the Muslims, especially amongst social relationships and their marriages and the preservation of it. And to remove anything that will cause some type of repulse or some type of, we want to say, aversion, where one would not want to be with another or one to dislike another, until the Messenger of Allah gave some details in that regard, where he says that they take something sharp and remove hairs from those places where they should be removed. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ in those different types, and this narration, especially what we're speaking about here, is showing that one should remove hair from the different private part areas, and also likewise as a form of beautification for the woman. To remove hairs from certain parts of her body is a type of beautification, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, this is the detail that we wanted everybody to be on, or what we wanted them to be aware of. What if the absence of the husband is short, a short time frame, is small? For example, he might be gone a day, or maybe a couple of hours, or maybe a long day, maybe might just a regular day, 8 hours, or what have you. or maybe let's just say 2 days or 3 days. That's not a long, extended time frame. Especially if the woman is expecting that her husband more than likely is going to be coming home that night or a particular time, she knows. Whereas she's going to let her hair or let herself be in a state where she's a little bit more lax. As long as that doesn't take place, then he can come home and at a particular time in the night, whereas he wouldn't fall into what the Messenger of Allah said in his narration. So basically, just to make everything concise, the Messenger of Allah is just saying here that if it's a long, extended period of time, if this is the case, then the man should give some type of prior notice before him coming home, or whereas in a state where sha'th will not take place. Well, sha'th meaning where their hair or their bodies won't be in a state where it's disheveled or disoriented. Like we said, that the man or the woman should try to preserve her body as far as how she looks as much as possible. But I gave some details in this, brothers and sisters, as I said last class. Brothers, especially with our brothers, take in consideration that our sisters are in circumstances now that they have to work and they have kids. So they might not be in a manner that's acceptable in which you would think and in a way that you would expect her to be, due to all these different types of pressures that are upon her. As we know that our sisters have to wear overhead abayas, they have to wear all these things, and it sometimes causes their hair to be disoriented. And they have to go out the house and they have to work, and they have to take care of their children. Then they have to cook dinner for the husband. Then they got to make sure that the children are situated. Then they got to make sure their work is complete. Then you got to make sure the house is clean. All these things men need to take into consideration of the circumstances of our sisters, because these ahadith are talking about that of what is how a society is supposed to be ran. How society is supposed to be ran. It's supposed to be ran where men are the ones that maintain and the women are the ones that stay in the houses and they are more, or they comply to them on a more domestic capacity of doing what? Work in the house. That's in a community, a society of how it's supposed to be ran. So these ahadith are applicable for that. So and also likewise in ahadith, in circumstances where women now have to work 2 shifts and they have 6 children and they have a husband that's not paying all the bills, then their situation switches. So then men now need to be a little bit more patient when they see their wife in a state that's not in her best, or it's not in a state where it's what? Totally beautified, or what he would say that is what? Acceptable. Are the sisters with me? I keep hearing voices. Because I keep hearing conversations on the side. So that's the reason why we say, again, we need to take in consideration these affairs and take in consideration the circumstances of our sisters so we can be more patient. So when sometimes when the husband enters upon the wife and she's in a state where it's not presentable, where she's not her best, take in consideration all the other pressures that she has upon her, of what is of her job and of the other different things and bills that has to be paid, where the husband is not completely bringing in all that suffices for the household, and she has to complement that or compensate that or fulfill those other obligations that have to be paid. So brothers, just be more patient. If sometimes you see your wife in a state where she's not at her best. So we need to take this in consideration, because these ahadith were pertaining to women where men went out and worked, and the men and the women stayed in and worked and cared for affairs that were domestic. So they were able to be what? Women. They were able to just come home when the man could walk in and she's totally decorated. She looks very pretty. And he's always seeing her in the manner that he would love to see her in. And a lot of women will love this. But unfortunately, I don't want to use the word unfortunate, but what Allah has preordained in our society is that which is taking place, where now majority of us are in the state where both spouses have to be working in order to what? So things can be adequate in paying the bills and sustaining the household. And that's in a lot of our circumstances, which causes us to be more patient with each other. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? But however, like we said, this hadith of the Messenger of Allah, where he says in the second narration of Bukhari, what does it say, everyone? It says, إِذَا أَطَّالَ أَحَدُكُمُ الْغَيْبَةِ. If one of you is to be absent a long period of time, do not let him come upon his family in the night. We said this is in regards to the wife not being in a state where she knows that he's coming. If he gives her some type of prior notice, or some type of not warning, but some news that he's coming, that he's approaching, and that I will be home on this particular night, at this particular time, then that removes. That removes what the Messenger of Allah prohibited. It removes it. It takes it away. As long as he gives that prior notice, and he gives her that news that he's coming, so that gives her enough time to what everyone to prepare herself, to clean herself, to make sure that everything is in its proper place for her husband to come home. But as for, like we said, those short times, it's not 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. It's not really that long, and she knows that he more than likely is coming home, and she knows that in that particular instance, she's not going to be in a state where she's disheveled, disoriented. Then he can enter in the night. He can. So that hadith is just applying to what? To a long, extended period of time where she does not know he's coming home, and it's a surprise. So, just to sum up everything, even as Ahl Ilm mentioned it, saying, what the Messenger of Allah prohibited was in what? 2 circumstances. Number 1, إِذَا كَانَ السَّفَرُ طَوِيلًا, if the travel is long. So if the travel is long, it's not for him to what? To enter upon or surprise his family without prior notice or without prior warning or what have you. That's number 1. Number 2, if him approaching is at night and she has no idea he's coming and he surprises her. So verily he should not what? Surprise her. So all this he should not surprise her due to the long extended period of time he was gone. He should not surprise her. Like you said, nobody wants to walk in a state or walk in a manner where he sees his wife in a manner that's not acceptable. And I'm sure that even women who's been raised with manners and class will find this to be something that's unacceptable. Because especially if a woman loves her husband, she would not want to let him see her in a state where she would not be want him to see that will cause some type of instability in a relationship. Because she would want to what? See her. She would love that he would see her at her best. طيب. So that's the first hadith. We gave some details in this last class because I didn't want to be repetitive today. But we gave some other details in this regard because we talked about the statement of Umar al-Khattab, right, everyone? We talked about how the woman, that is not befitting that a man be gone for a long period, extended period of times, where it's a year now, or 8 months to the end of it, where Umar al-Khattab was making his rounds at night. I don't have no time, but we'll just say it briefly because we got to go into the next hadith. That he made his rounds and he heard that the woman that recited that poetry, that she said that basically my spouse has been gone for long. He said, and if I don't have anyone intimate to be with, and if it was the case, you would see that this bed would be rocking or shaking. What does she mean by that? Meaning that, yeah, it says that Umar al-Khattab was making a circle. Yeah, she said that. That's a sahabiyah. She said that if it wasn't for the fear of Allah, this bed would be shaken. Yes. They were human beings. So Umar al-Khattab heard that, and he looked, tried to find who was her husband, because she said she was married, but her husband was gone a long time. So Umar al-Khattab asked Hafsa, and as we know, she was brought, and there was no one watching her, because we know it's also not permissible for a person to be alone. So he added that someone also aid her. Like he also took a servant, Umar al-Khattab, for the sister, so he can aid her until her husband returned. So then the message of, as we know, that Umar al-Khattab have issued that fatwa that a man should not be gone for long extended times. After 4 months, it's incumbent upon him to come back or try to do in a manner that is appropriate where she would be accommodated, her wife or his wife. So she would not fall into something that is impermissible, because people are human beings. And this narration shows that what? That even the Sahabiyyat, and it also shows that the Sahaba were also not only the greatest of creation, but they also shows that they were human beings. They were human beings. So she clearly says this. If it wasn't for the fear of Allah, this bed would be rocking. To let brothers and men know that women are human beings. They feel just like they think that we feel. Men always want to be egotistical, thinking, how can my wife do this? No, your wife also Likewise, and I know men doesn't want to hear this, but the reality is it's the truth. They're human beings. They see men just like we see women. Don't think that they don't see things that we like to see too when we see out in the street. No man wants to think that in his mind, but she's a woman. She's still a human being. So that's the reason why we should what? Make sure that we're taking care of our spouses to the best of our ability. To make sure that we're showing honor, respect to them, especially making sure that we're doing our best to help them and make sure that they're comfortable. So that's what it says in that extended part where Ibn Khattab issued that fatwa. Where he said for the man after that particular time needs to come back home. And he made it whereas the woman would come home and he would accommodate his wife and make sure that she's taken care of, especially in that regard. But that's what we talked about last week. I don't even want to repeat it again. Fine. So the next hadith, let's go on everyone. The next narration, it says, on the authority of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, I also forgot the last narration, about the man who was, also the statement of Ibn Khattab, where another man was brought and he was dirty. And to the point, like it says in the narration, where the woman was tired of him. She said, do something with this, basically. Just like this. You see this right here? Do something with this. So she's speaking to Ibn Khattab. Ibn Khattab looked and found that the man was looking at him and his appearance wasn't appealing. His appearance he wasn't looking appealing. Until the sister became fed up with him. She became fed up of him not taking care or maintaining his appearance. She took him and brought Ibn Khattab, said, do something with this. So Ibn Khattab took him and had him commanded that he be washed and that things be cut and certain things would be looking appropriate and somewhat beautified so he could look handsome. It was so bad to the narration, as we said last week. It said there was a man who came up to the woman and took her, and she said, get off, basically, leave me alone. Who are you? Some strange man touching me. She said, I'm your husband. So that's how bad it was to that extent that she couldn't even recognize who he was until after he was clean. And after his after his hygiene, or after he was basically after what was removed to bring his I guess him being presentable now have returned or what have you, that now to this point, now she was surprised to see how he looked. Until Ibn Khattab had commanded that they be, okay, now go ahead about your business. But it was to show that it's incumbent upon men to likewise take care of their appearance. It was to show that they need to also likewise make sure that how they look outwardly needs to be presentable. Because women are human beings and they like to see likewise their husband being presentable and be looking nice and looking clean and looking maintained, and then also them preserving and maintaining their hygiene. طيب. So the next narration on the authority, and this is all from Husn al-Ishra. It's all from good dealings with the spouse. And this is the reason why this chapter was put in this book. طيب. On the next narration, everyone looks in their book. On the authority of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, رضي الله عنه, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن شر الناس عند الله منزلة يوم القيامة الرجل يفضي إلى امرأته وتفضي إليه ثم ينشر سرها. He says that on the authority of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, رضي الله عنه, that the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said the most evilest of people, the most evil of people of the day of resurrection is a man that he was intimate or he seen, or he was secretly with, meaning his wife, of course. He goes to the woman in this manner, and that she goes to him in this manner, then he exposes her secret, or she exposes his secret. Meaning what took place of intimacy or what have you. We'll discuss this in a minute, inshallah. طيب. As you'll know, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, notice that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned of a matter that is from preservations of one's relationship amongst each other, socially, amongst ourselves, with our spouses, with our families, with our wives, and likewise wives with their husbands, of how to preserve that, and what will be a means to preservation of their relationship. What will be a means of that? From those ways that will preserve one's relationship is that As the Messenger of Allah clarified, and he mentioned and said here that the most evilest of people with Allah on the day of resurrection is status. So the Messenger of Allah is affirming the day of resurrection. And the Messenger of Allah is using the day of resurrection for means to instill fear in the people, not to fall into this act. So it's not only just for one to be on guard as far as in preservation of our relationships in this world, but also to utilize our iman so it can be an incentive for us not to fall into it. That would be the reason. Meaning, out of fear of Allah, that one will abstain from falling into this particular what? This particular sin. So it says here, so the Messenger of Allah said that the evilest of people on the day of resurrection, in status with Allah Ta'ala, is the one man who's intimate with his wife, and vice versa, and then they spread each other's secrets. And you'll find that this is also from our communities, that you'll find that women and men, they do this. And I don't know why they do this. You'll find that they'll talk about their bedroom secrets. They'll talk about how their husband is in the bedroom. And it's not in a manner in order to help relieve the problem. As we'll talk about, there's an exception to the rule. There is an exception. The exception is if you want this particular harm that you're facing to be removed. As we'll discuss, inshallah. Like, for example, a person would say, or the woman would go to the hakim, to the judge. And she's being harmed. For example, her husband hasn't been intimate with her, let's just say, 3 months straight or 4 months straight. He hasn't been intimate, he hasn't touched her. Tayyib, does this hadith apply to her now or not? That's the exception. The exception is we're going to talk about, inshallah. She wants the harm removed, we'll go to the judge. And she would disclose that to have the harm removed. Because this is a harm upon the woman or a harm upon the husband. So she would disclose this and clarify this to the judge. So now the judge can what? Do something about it. So here in this particular instance, she can what? Mention it. And this one could be considered for falling into this sin here. It's not from that. As we know, a lot of ahkam in Islam gives us a general ruling, but in certain circumstances it becomes what? It becomes an exception, as we know. From that, as we know, the example of ghibah. As ghibah, in its origin, is from the major sins. Backbiting is a major sin, as we know. However, backbiting can turn into a vice in certain circumstances where it's needed. For example, of knowing who a person is. For example, a person now comes to propose to your daughter in marriage, and you want to know who he is. So you ask around, or you ask the individual who proposed to your daughter, or your sister, or your mother, or what have you. Who is he? So you now start to search who this individual is. You go to the masjid, you ask around, you might ask the imam of the masjid, what have you. Who is he? And this is something that our brothers and sisters need to do this more. They need to ask about who is so-and-so. Does he come to the masjid? Does he come to your classes? Like I told everyone before, since I've been involved in da'wah, maybe 2 sisters have asked me, sent me letters saying, I'm about to marry so-and-so brother. Do you know him? Who is he? Who's his friends? Does he come to your class? Does he come to the masjid? They won't ask that. Only thing is, she sit down. All the man got to do is decorate his speech. I got a good job. She sold. Done. That fast. Not realizing what she's getting herself into. Never asked around who knows him, who so-and-so. Does the imam know him? Can send the letters, ask the imam, do you know him? Did he come to the masjid? Do you know who he is? Can you directly, who knows who I can ask? Can you direct me to someone else? Can you refer me to someone I can speak to? Who is this man? What's his history? Who is he? Who's his friends? No one asked this. Maybe, like I said, I've been down for years now. Maybe 2 sisters sent this letter to me. Who is he? Does he come to your class? Does he come to the masjid? If you don't know him, who knows him? Who can you refer me to? These are things that sisters need to ask before they marry him. And this would alleviate a lot of problems amongst our sisters. A lot of problems. So now you start to get in now these situations where you do gas station marriages, back alley marriages. You start to have these, well, my man, he was on the phone. Well, the third party was his friend. His friend, they was on the phone with each other. Oh yeah, I don't know. Well, where did you meet him at? We met at the supermarket. Or we exchanged numbers on social media. Or we exchanged numbers on the street somewhere. Or my man hooked me up, and then he's the one, I made him the one. My best friend, he's the one killed all. He's the third party. He could even be your with kill now. So now when these things now turn into a bunch of turmoil, now everyone wants to blow up someone's spot. I don't believe these brothers. Now people want to vent on social media. Now everyone wants to say these men out here are terrible. But then now you want to ask the sister, you've investigated, sister, did you ask the imam of the masjid? Did you ask someone, did you know the individual? To try to get down to the bottom of who he is. Did you ask? Then you'll be like, no. Okay, then now you have what you got now. So that's what we're saying in this regard. And even with brothers, the same thing. We need to start asking, who are these sisters? Who knows them? Who can you refer me to? What masjid she attends? Who can refer me to who I can speak to about the sister? We have to investigate. Do more investigation so we can alleviate a lot of these problems or minimize them. So that's what you say in this regard. Ghiba, we know, is impermissible. But in certain circumstances, it can turn into what? Advice. So if one was to ask and inquire about an individual, who is so-and-so? And then you go to that individual and they say, listen, Akhi, I don't want to backbite. What are you talking about backbite? I'm about to marry this individual. I need to know who he is or she is. Here, this is not ghiba. Rather than coming upon you to clarify what you know about the person now. Because that's advice for your brother and sister to either aid them upon the good they're trying to attain or avoid them from the evil that they're embarking upon. You understand, everyone? So now ghiba here switches into what? Backbiting switches into what? Advice. When you want to know about a certain individual, when you want to know certain circumstances about who you're taking knowledge from, of who you're going to marry your spouse off to, of who you're going to hire your job, who's going to be your partner in your business or your different types of business ventures. Is someone so reliable? Is someone so a liar? Is he trustworthy? These affairs to show how complete our religion is. Even though it might have laid down a ruling, but you'll find that Allah Ta'ala, out of his infinite wisdom, made in certain circumstances these general rulings an exception. Because it's still what? Beneficial for social ills or for the reality or the affairs of society can still be intact. Because they can't be intact except by this. You can't now go and say, someone marries your daughter, and you go on to the person that asks about who he is, and they say, Yahi, I don't want to backbite nobody, I ain't going to see nothing. What are you talking about? It's not backbiting. It's advice. You understand, everyone? So that's what we're saying in this regard. Same thing applies here to this hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. Same thing. The hukam is that is what? The hukam is, or the origin of this particular narration is that it's general, that the spouses should not expose each other's what? Personal business, in which we're going to discuss in a minute, inshallah. For what we say is, notice that the Messenger of Allah said the most evilest of people in level and degree with Allah is that a man is intimate with his wife and vice versa, the wife is intimate with him. Meaning, here are two things. Number one, of what takes place amongst them if they are alone with each other. So it's not necessarily have to be intimacy itself. Is it clear what I'm saying? Them just what takes place between them when they're alone with each other. Is it clear what I'm saying so far? Or it can be intimacy itself. That these things should not be what? Discussed with others. And then it be spread amongst the people. Meaning secret type of speech that is very, very, of course we know, not only explicit, but also things that takes place between the spouses of speech. And we know what they are. Of that which is pertaining to desire or what have you. Where also how one has to look to each other. A person would say, well, what do you mean just being alone with each other? Because even when you're alone with each other, we know that people see certain things in physical parts of people's bodies that's usually not exposed. That could be something of their body that they would not want someone to know about them, or him or her. Something of a blemish on their body, or something of some type of scar, or something on their body that they find, or they might be a little bit, let's just say, a little bit of uncomfortable about. And they don't want anyone to know about that. And you go and you spread that. So now you're in violation of what is private and what's concerning them. So now just the prohibition is not just for intimacy itself, but even what you see in the times where it's just you're alone with your spouse and just between you, that you see certain things from her and she sees certain things from you. Those things should not be what? Disclosed to anyone. Because that's preservation of the relationship. That it should not be what? Explained. Oh man, sister, yeah, I seen you should see his chest. Oh my goodness, he has what such and such nipples, or he has this type of way. He has those things are impermissible. And likewise for men to say things about their wives. Man, you know my wife, she has this real big gut. You know what I mean? I just can't get with it. I'm sorry. Or my wife, this such and such has this blemish on her body, or these varicose veins. I'm just tired of looking at it every day. Those things, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, are what? Are the things that causes some type of what? Bad relationship and bad dealings in the relationship. Especially when you find what is the most embarrassing is when you find that other people know it about you. Other people from the community know certain things about you that you think that how did they know about that? How did they find that out? Except it was from your own spouse that actually what said it. That is very embarrassing. And it's very humiliating. That your husband would say something about your wife, and the wife would say something about the husband, and you find it with the common folk and on their tongues, knowing certain private things about you, that only your wife or only the husband knows. So that's the reason why the Messenger of Allah ﷺ has said that this matter is what? It's serious. And how they're the most evilest of people on the day of resurrection. And to also show how complete the religion is in this regard of preservation for one's privacy, whether it be in certain things, physicality of certain blemishes of the body, and even intimacy itself. That's even on another degree. On another level. To tell another woman or to tell another man of what they do in the bed with their wife, or what they do in the bed with their spouse. That's another level and a whole nother degree of what is to be preserved as far as the sanctuary of those particular matters, and how what? Sanctified they are, and how touchy and sensitive and tedious they are, that they should not be disclosed. So those things and matters are very important to preserve one's relationship with his spouse. So it says that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said that he'll be one of the most evilest in degree with Allah. So looking to your spouse, in which Allah Ta'ala has allowed, like we said, those things should not be disclosed, especially as we know in this regard, once one is married to someone, when they can display their awrah, or what they have to hide, they can display it to them in this regard. And also what they do as far as indulging in pleasure or different enjoyment with each other and delight that they take place amongst themselves. All these are private and they're secret. It's not permissible for a man to speak about it or to expose his wife, and likewise vice versa. For if a person does this, then he has fell into a major sin. And these are from those secret affairs that should not be broadcasted, and they should not be spread amongst the people, because it will cause what they call su'ul ishra, bad dealings with the husband, or bad, or if you want to say, not only bad dealings, but bad treatment amongst each other. Where these affairs should not be spoken about with the common folk or spreading it. Like we said, the only exception that we gave is when something is taking place of harm, and a person wants advice of how to remove it or go about it. Goes to the judge or goes to the imam or go what have you. For example, my husband, what do I do? My husband, for example, hasn't been intimate with me for 3 months. He has to touch me in 2 months. And I feel like I'm going to fall into sin. I'm just being realistic because these things happen. So now if a person discloses information, is it applicable to what we're talking about, this hadith? We said what, everyone? No, it isn't. Because now she's trying to obtain advice to try to remove the harm, or knowing how to what? How to deal with it, or have it removed, or how to conduct in it. But not just for merely just saying it out of what? Mockery, or trying to make a person look like they're being disrespected, or they're being violated, or their honor is being disparaged or humiliated or ridiculed. All those matters. If a person, for example, you're just sitting amongst your friends, hey, yo, man, my wife, she got this. She got some varicose veins, man. That's what we're speaking about. And or the wife said, man, my husband, man, that guy, man, he's so lame in the bed. Those are the ignorant types of affairs that what? Need to be alleviated. So those affairs are not to remove the evil. You're doing it in order just to ridicule and make them look what? Humiliated. So that is what's what? Impermissible. But in regards to now having the harm removed, You go into a person of knowledge, my husband's done this, what do I do? Or my wife does this, what do I do? Such and such takes place, in myself, I feel I'm going to fall into sin, what do I do? So these things now it's permissible because now you're trying to have the harm what? Removed. You're trying to now do something about it to try to preserve the relationship, not to what? Not to destroy it. Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? طيب. So now, just to sum up everything, you'll find the great Imam, he goes on to say, فَمَا يَدُورُ بَيْنَ الزَّوْجَيْنِ مِنَ الْإِسْتِمْتَاعِ وَالْخَلْوَةِ أُمُورٌ تَدُورُ بَيْنَهُمَا فَقَطْ وَلَا يَجُوزُ إِخْبَارُ النَّاسِ بِهَذَا فمن فعل ذلك فهو من شر الناس عند الله وهذا وعيد شديد ومع ملاحظته وتجنبه سبب لبقاء العشرة وعدم تجنبه سبب لسوء العشرة بين الزوجين ومن حقوق الزوجة عليك أن تكتم أسرارها ومن حقوق الزوج على زوجته أن تكتم أسراره لا نتحدث عنها. He said, what takes place between the two spouses of enjoyment and delight and being alone with each other are affairs that take place between them only. And it's not permissible to inform the people about it. Whoever does this, then he's from the evilest of people with Allah. It's in status and in levels. And this is a tremendous warning. And despite of us noticing this and also staying away from it and avoiding it and it's abstaining from it will be a reason and preservation of good dealings with your spouse. And not observing this and falling into it will be a reason for now bad dealings between the two spouses. For verily from the rights of the wife over her husband is that he protects her secrets and she protects his secrets. And that is from the rights of the spouse over one another. That they protect each other's secrets and they don't speak about it. So now he gives the exception. He says, except that if something of an extreme circumstance takes place, where an extreme circumstance takes place, whereas some type of conflict takes place or some type of harm. And we just gave examples of this. For verily if she used to complain, for example, to the judge or now to the one of knowledge, to have the harm removed or what have you, then this is not applicable. Well, for example, he says my wife is or my husband is not intimate with me or what have you, and she clarifies that to the judge or the person of knowledge to remove the harm. Then, of course, you know that the husband will be called in order to see whether or not it is true or not, if it's been established that what she's saying is true, to remove what he's been accused of, to remove the accusation. But here in this instance, this is where a person can now disclose it and say it, and it would be considered from this particular warning that the Messenger of Allah mentioned in this particular hadith. So no one can now say, and I hope brothers don't play these games, mind games with these sisters, saying, well, you wasn't supposed to discuss it. You say, what are you talking about? You haven't done this. You haven't taken care of me for 5-6 months. You haven't paid any bills. You haven't been intimate with me for 6 months. If she now goes to a person of knowledge to complain, who else is a woman going to complain to if now she can't say to anyone? She's not supposed to say it to anyone. That's preservation of my honor. Preservation of my honor is preservation of your family's honor, brothers, by taking care of them. That's preservation of one's honor. It's taking care of your families. That rather even will make you more honorable. More honorable is making sure your family is straight. That's how one attains more honor. So that's the reason why when a woman now wants to complain and the brothers even in certain circumstances, this is not applicable for this particular narration. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So we have to put everything in its proper place. The religion, alhamdulillah, has came in order to preserve one's honor. In certain circumstances, certain things that are the general ruling can switch if there's being a harm or some type of abuse being committed. So it has to be disclosed in order for what? For one to try to come in and sort it out and try to cause or come to some type of resolution to the problem. So that's the narration in this regard. So we know that we said, and I want to keep it basic for today. So inshallah, bi'idhnillah, we'll just stick with that because there was some information I wanted to talk about. We'll just keep everything concise in what we just mentioned. Is there any questions about the lesson, everyone? So is it clear, everyone, what we mentioned today? Is anything that wasn't understood? My sister said it. Oh, you going to say something, Abdullah? It's in Buloogh Al-Maraam. It's in here. It's in the book itself. You didn't bring a book. No, it's in the book. It's in the book. There's a lot of ahkam you'll find where Allah Ta'ala, of course, made a hukm, laid down a ruling, and upon the revelation, the message of Allah, for example, where ruling is general, then it switches in certain circumstances. For example, like we said, in regards to backbiting, you have certain circumstances where it becomes a vice. In those 6 places where it says, القدح ليس بغيبة في ستة متظلم ومعرف ومحذر ومجاهر فسق ومستفت ومن طلب الإعانة في إزالة منكر. It says in the poetry. The ghiba switches it to a vice in 6 places. القدح ليس بغيبة في ستة متظلما ومعرف ومحذر ومجاهر فسقا ومستفت ومن طلب الإعانة في إزالة منكر. 6 places where ghiba is not considered what? It's not backbiting. It's not considered. It's considered advice now. He says mutadhallim, the woman or the man that complains because of a harm they're being what tested with. He said mutadhallim, the one who's being oppressed. Mutadhallimin wa mu'arraf, a one that he needs to be known who he is. Nobody knows who he is. So, for example, he's put on or entrusted with certain affairs, and a person wants to know who he is. Are they really reliable or trustworthy? Or mu'arraf. Or a person that has been tested with some type of sin. Meaning, he's a kleptomaniac. He's a klepto. So you see that I'll give it to you again. So you see, for example, a man bringing another individual in his house who's known to be sticky fingers, or he knows that everything he puts his hand on, he's stealing. Mike, when your back is turned, he'll go inside your clothes and steal your wallet. And you see the man walking in your house, and something happened. And then the brother comes into you and says, oh, yeah, I didn't know that about him. Why you didn't tell me? Oh, I didn't want to fall on the back by you. You understand? So mutadhallimin wa mu'arrafin wa muhadharin, warning from someone that needs to be warned against. Especially if he's a caller to bid'ah or caller to misguidance. So he says muhadharin. That's in regards to people who misguide the ummah. That's in regards to social affairs. What do you think about what's in regards to things that are pertaining to the origin, the foundation of religion? So people will say, oh, why are people always warning and mentioning people's names? This is the reason. The reason is right here. If you want to be warned against from a person and what's going to walk in your house and steal something, that's just something in social matters. What about that which is in the origin, the foundation, what's going to save you from hell? Don't you think the person needs to be on guard against who he is? Whether or not he's a call or misguidance or not? So it's muhadharin. It says the first one is mutadhallimin wa mu'arrafin wa muhadharin wa mujahirin fisq. The person who broadcasts his sins has no ghiba. A person that broadcasts his sins has no ghiba. As you'll find some Muslims out of ignorance, they'll say, oh, so-and-so, for example, man, so-and-so was on social media. Sister had a weave in her hair. Sister had her eyes plucked and took a picture of herself, and she's bragging in the club holding up a drink. So if a sister is doing this and she's broadcasting a sin, does she have any ghiba? No, she doesn't, because she already what? Removed the curtain of Allah covering up her sin from herself. If she would have did that and would have kept it to herself, inshallah, that would have been a means of Allah covering up her sin, inshallah, in this world and the hereafter. But you made it worse now when you took and ripped the curtain of secrecy off yourself by taking a picture. Not only take a picture, but it's as if you're bragging about what you're doing. And then we wonder why our communities, our societies is going at the rate it's going of humiliation. And people are losing their minds to the point people don't have no more shyness about their sins anymore. They brag about it now. Oh, I'm doing me, don't judge me, to the end of the nonsense they say. Right? So, now, a person does this type of open sinning, outwardly and openly sinning and broadcasting. Do they have any ghiba? No, they don't. There is no ghiba for them. There isn't any. They already took the curtain off themselves. Now, if they would have preserved it, then the Muslims would deal with them in a different way. Where it says, listen, because if a person now, you'll find in the Sharia, if a person now has done it in secret, that means they still feel that they're what? Shy about it. They still feel that what they're doing is what? It's wrong. So you would deal with them in a certain way. You try to what? Be more patient and be more what? Have more gentleness in dealing with them and having a little bit more tolerance. But when a person now is openly what? I don't care. They're now flamboyant and they're openly doing what they're doing. There's no ghibah for them. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So this is to, inshallah, be a sentence for one, if you please, and I hope Allah doesn't test any of us with falling and getting weak. But if one gets weak, try to keep it secret. If Allah covered up your sin, cover it up. Don't tell anyone. Don't put it on social media. Verily, Allah Ta'ala says in this book, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُحِبُّونَ تَشِيعَ الْفَاحِشَةُ فِي الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. It says, those who love that abominations or different types of filthy matters be spread amongst those who believe, they will have a painful torment in this world and the hereafter. And Allah knows and you do not know. So the best thing to do if you get weak and Allah has tested you in yourself is to keep it secret with yourself. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? طيب. So that's mujahid al-fisq. And the second part is mustaftin, where one seeks a fatwa. One seeking a fatwa, if he does that, is not considered ghibah. If he seeks a fatwa from a person of knowledge, and they have to disclose some information that's private in order to get the proper ruling on it, then that's what? It's not ghibah. It's not. And the last exception from ghibah is وَطَلَبَ الْإِعَانَةِ فِي إِزَالَةِ مُنْكَرٍ. He says that one seeks help in order for evil to be removed. Meaning from, let's just say you're in a Muslim country, and someone, let's just say, is performing magic. So we'll contact the authorities. Contact the authorities will come in order to what? Stop that evil. So now you're seeking help in order for evil to be what? To be removed. Or any type of evil there is. So those are the exceptions to what? Where ghibah switches into what? It switches to advice. So don't listen to those people out here that says, oh, this backbiting, a'udhu billah. Because I've heard this recently, last week. And I said, these people are so ignorant of the religion. If they will only come to class and take time out, they will learn that a lot of these affairs are not ghibah. Rather, it's warning the people so they can be what? On guard against dangers. No, you shouldn't be backbiting the Muslims. Yeah, there's certain exceptions to the rule. Especially when people are openly broadcasting sins, where people are doing day and night on social media all day. They have any ghibah for them? There is no ghibah, because they have no shyness anymore. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Jayyid. So we'll stop here, inshallah. Any other questions about the lesson? We can stop. So I think the brother, we'll stop here. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.